This week on Jerusalem Dateline, Middle East security agreements unravel and the Abraham Accords destabilize in the wake of President Biden's trip to the Middle East. And a meeting between Iran, Russia, and Turkey troubles Israel and the U.S. Plus, the Maccabea Games unite Jewish people around the world with Israel. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. 1 week after President Joe Biden and his foreign policy team left the Middle East, the impact on the region and the historic Abraham Accords is still being felt. When President Biden came to visit both Israel and Saudi Arabia, things began to change in the region as agreements for mutual defense between Israel and neighboring Arab countries began to fall apart.
The security architecture, publicly at least, unraveled. It was canceled, and the UAE instead is now trying to reestablish diplomatic relations with Iran, as are some of the other countries. So it seems that they measured the United States' commitment to confronting Iran up, measured it as too weak, and are trying to come to some terms with the Iranians.
Middle East expert David Wormser says the unwillingness of the Biden administration to present a credible military threat towards Iran puts the Sunni Gulf countries in a vulnerable position.
Because alone, they really can't stop the Iranians. They can't defend themselves effectively against the Iranians. So they only have one or two choices. One choice is to try to grovel in front of the Iranians, which is the path they're beginning to show some sign of. The second path is to find a new strong horse, a new patron of power that can help defend them.
In addition to the defense concerns, the Biden administration is also making a change to the Abraham Accords by reintroducing the Oslo framework for Middle East peace talks by bringing in Jordan, Qatar, and the Palestinian Authority. But other countries don't support that idea.
The Saudis, the other Arabs, they do not like the PLO. They do not like what they're doing in various areas. So by forcing that back in, it actually threatened the Abraham Accords. Again, fortunately, I think the overriding interests of the countries are so strong that the Abraham Accords will survive, but it will not be with U.S. coordination.
Former Special Envoy for the Abraham Accords, Aryeh Lightstone, says these Gulf countries are frustrated.
And there is a feeling of, what are we going to do for the next 26 months?
Lightstone says if the U.S. doesn't lead, other nations are waiting to take over.
There's no coincidence that Putin showed up to Iran just as Biden left the region. There's a competition here. If the U.S. doesn't lead, Russia or China will. It's absolutely in our interest to lead, and those countries want to be led by us. They want to follow with us. They want to stand next to us. They don't want to sit next to Putin. They don't want to sit next to the Chinese. They're not interested in that. But if we're not there, the Russians and the Chinese are.
As Aryeh Lightstone said, Russian President Vladimir Putin visited Tehran and met with the leaders of Iran and Turkey. Many saw the summit as a threat to the United States and a danger to Israel. One major subject for the three leaders, how to divide their spheres of influence inside Syria, an issue of great concern to Israel.
In general, the work of Russia, Iran, and Turkey contributing to the comprehensive settlement of the crisis in Syria is highly effective.
Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi called to remove all U.S. troops east of the Euphrates River and an end to Israeli airstrikes inside Syria.
Might transpire out of this conference that the Russians will decide to limit the freedom of action of the Israeli Air Force in Syria as a result of their getting closer to the Iranians.
This could represent a threat to Israel, since it needs freedom of action inside Syria to stop Iran's further military buildup and the flow of arms to Iranian proxies like Hezbollah inside Lebanon. And here in the Middle East, many observers see the summit between these three major powers in the region as a signal to the United States.
It says a clear signal that Russia, a strong power, and two other strong Middle Eastern powers such as Turkey and Iran, those are the most populous states in the region, are working together, cooperating, and they may cooperate, obviously, against American interests.
Middle East expert Ephraim Inbar says both the enemies and allies of the U.S. in the region see America as a weak power under the Biden administration.
Biden is not considered seriously in the Middle East. He's not considered a serious actor because America is weak. And in the Middle East, states and leaders are treating with respect only powerful leaders and powerful nations that are ready to act militarily to attain their interests.
Analysts warn that the combination of the growing alliance of Russia, Iran, and Turkey, along with a weak U.S. administration and Iran racing towards a nuclear bomb, all put increasing pressure on Israel.
On this issue, time is not on Israel's side. It's quite clear that the Iranians are progressing quite quickly toward a bomb. They have the missiles to carry it. They have probably to overcome the hurdle of weaponization. And this makes Israeli action quite urgent.
After his 5-day Mideast trip to Israel and Saudi Arabia, President Joe Biden traveled back to Washington and also announced he now has COVID. Some believe his visit left the region at a dangerous geopolitical crossroad. During the Saudi Arabian leg, President Biden emphasized the U.S. commitment to the region. He talked of wanting to prevent Russia and China from filling a Mideast vacuum he admits the U.S. created.
But let me conclude by summing all this up in one sentence. The United States is invested in building a positive future in the region in partnership with all of you, and the United States is not going anywhere.
A question from the beginning was how would the president deal with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who he believes murdered journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The answer came in a fist bump, a picture seen around the world.
Do you regret the fist bump, Mr. President? Why don't you guys talk about something that matters?
Despite this awkward relationship, part of Biden's wish list included asking the oil giant to produce more, hoping it would lower the price of gas in the U.S.
The kingdom had announced it increased its maximum production capacity to 13 million barrels a day. The kingdom has no spare capacity to increase production beyond that.
The greater issue for the region, however, is Iran's growing nuclear program and uranium enrichment.
We call on them to comply with international law, to not interfere with the international affairs of other nations, to cooperate with the International Atomic Energy Agency, and to fulfill its obligations in this regard.
Biden sees diplomacy as the best solution to stop Iran's nuclear program, although for some in Israel, that's not good enough.
Certain key people in the IDF were really, as they say, freaked out by Biden's unwillingness to do anything at all to prevent Iran from putting nuclear weapons together and deploying them against Israel.
Foreign policy analyst Carolyn Glick calls the Biden administration backward as it confuses friend and foe.
Iran is an enemy of the United States that seeks its annihilation. And on the other hand, Saudi Arabia has been an American ally for 80 years because it doesn't make sense why the Biden administration would want to give some sort of, celebrity discount to Iran and treat Saudi Arabia so harshly when the former is America's enemy and the latter is America's ally.
As for Israel, with a caretaker government and upcoming elections, Glick says this is a dangerous season.
We're in a very difficult and trying time right now, and we just have to hope for the best and hope for the best in terms of the elections so that we'll get, hopefully, again, more competent leadership elected and into office in 4 months. So we have to hope that we'll be able to weather this very dangerous storm.
Coming up, technology that takes the goodness out of plants and leaves the calories behind.
And the reason why our technology is so unique in this area and provides a critical solution for pharmaceutical companies in the future is that we can go back to the plants and take the critical, essential, active medicinal compounds from the plant, and we're able to bring the consistency that the pharmaceutical companies need.
An Israeli company says it has developed a new technology to extract the greatest benefits from plants and produce a product that avoids calorie intake and other less desirable components. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
God gave us 500,000 plants that all themselves carried critical, active, medicinal compounds that are so important for the human body.
And by trying to scientifically get the best of what plants offer, BioHarvest Sciences CEO Ilan Sobel says his company has reached an amazing breakthrough.
We at BioHarvest Sciences have developed a platform technology that's able to take any essential, active, medicinal compound from the plant, and we grow these compounds in cells. In a way, we're able to maintain the original structural composition of these specific medicinal compounds.
Using a process shrouded in secrecy, the cells are developed in bioreactors for 3 weeks and then harvested.
We call the technology Plant Solicitation. And this technology helps us to grow cells in liquid media, to mimic the nature, to take all the benefits of the nature and to power it, to make it better.
We left with an amazingly soluble and bioavailable end product with this unique powder which ultimately contains all the essential polyphenols from a plant or all the essential antioxidants from a specific plant.
The first product, Vinia, is made from the skin, flesh, and seed cells of the red grape. Scientists got the idea from what's called the French paradox.
The French paradox talks about the fact that French people, they generally have a very fatty diet. Lots of pâté, lots of liver, lots of cheeses, but they have very good cardiovascular health. And the scientists realized it was from moderate consumption of red wine. They realized it was from a combination of polyphenols from the red grape. There was one king polyphenol called piceid resveratrol.
Each Vinia capsule in this bottle contains the same amount of piceid resveratrol as a full bottle of red wine or 1,000 red grapes, but without the sugar, the alcohol, or the calories.
Together working with other polyphenols like catechin, quercetin, tannins, and anthocyanins, they work together in order to provide this really excellent cardiovascular health.
Malkit Azachi, VP of Research and Development, says a healthy cardiovascular system is like looking at a map with more than 60,000 miles of highway with no traffic jams, construction zones, or detours.
Everything is passing smoothly. In the center of healthy circulation system, you will find healthy heart, and this heart keeps the blood pumping and the energy flowing because the oxygen reaches to all the organs in our body.
Sobel says clinical trials showed that Vinia helped increase the dilation of arteries by at least 70% in each participant in just 3 months.
As a CEO of a company, I am blessed every morning to wake up every day with 3 to 4 reviews on how Vinia is driving a transformational change in people's lives. Whether it's increased physical energy from blood flow, more vascularity and being able to work out longer in the gym, or literally having the mental alertness to not have to worry about an afternoon sleep.
Sobel says there are environmental benefits as well.
In 1 year, we're able to produce the equivalent of roughly 250,000 square meters of land. This really allows us to be able to bring the gift of Mother Nature to people in a way which literally utilizes a fraction of the amount of land. When it comes to water, all of our water is biodegradable. So everything gets recycled back into the water system.
They're also encouraging the pharmaceutical industry to go back to its plant-based roots.
And the reason why our technology is so unique in this area and provides a critical solution for pharmaceutical companies in the future is that we can go back to the plant and take the critical, essential, active medicinal compounds from the plant, and we're able to bring the consistency that the pharmaceutical companies need.
CBN News has not been able to independently verify BioHarvest's claims, but if true, it could open new doors for the pharmaceutical industry. The grape is one of 7 species of the Bible listed in Deuteronomy 8. 2 other plant products from that list are currently in development. Olivia from olives, designed to maintain normal cholesterol levels, and Pomia from pomegranates for anti-inflammatory support. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Rehovot, Israel.
Up next, connecting Jewish people from around the world with Israel through sports. Last week, we showed you the opening of the Maccabiah Games here in Israel. Thousands of Jewish athletes from around the world are participating in the huge international sporting event. And as CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl reports, the purpose behind the Games goes beyond sports to unite Jewish people worldwide with Israel.
Known as the Jewish Olympics, the Maccabiah Games are the third largest sporting event in the world and take place every 4 years in Israel.
It's actually a competition for all Jews around the world and all the Israelis. By the way, you don't have to be a Jew. It's open for all Israeli citizens. We have 10,000 participants that are arriving from 63 countries for a sports celebration in Israel.
Athletes are competing in dozens of sporting events at some 80 venues throughout Israel. All the swim competitions are here at the Wingate Institute in Netanya.
Born to Ukrainian parents, Israeli swimmer Anastasia Gorbenko won the gold medal for the 200-meter IM.
I think this competition is really special because there are so many Jews from anywhere in the world, and you are getting to know so many people from like around the world, and I think it's special because it's never happening in another country and never happening like in another religion, so it's something really special about the Maccabiah.
A water polo champ, Roy Hessing, CEO of the Maccabiah, says the Games connect Jews from around the world to Israel and vice versa.
All of a sudden, to see so many Jews around the world that are coming to celebrate in Israel and to make friendship and connection and business, it is important.
For many of the athletes and their parents, it's their first time in Israel, like 17-year-old Toby Barnett from Maryland, who won the gold medal for his age in the 200 IM.
It's an amazing experience. Before the Games, we got to explore a bunch of parts of Israel, Masada, the Dead Sea, so it's all been super fun.
We're just so proud of him and all of his dedication and commitment to swimming, and he worked so hard, and to see him accomplish his goals here. He also won the 400 IM the other night, so 2 gold medals is just phenomenal, and we're just so proud of who he is as a person.
Couldn't be happier to be here with him, yeah, very special.
Named after the Jewish family that overthrew a Syrian Greek ruler some 200 years before Jesus, the first Maccabiah Games were held in 1932. They've been held regularly since then, except during World War II and the founding of the State of Israel. The Games were also postponed from last year due to the COVID pandemic.
If it works very well for the last 90 years, I think that we're doing something in a good way. And from one Maccabiah to another, the numbers are really growing. It is the biggest Maccabiah ever. And I can hope and tell you one thing, that for the next Maccabiah, it will be bigger and better again.
Hessing says the Games also encourage Jewish people to immigrate to Israel or make Aliyah.
We're not pushing so hard, but 5% of those that are coming for Israel are making Aliyah, which is, we're talking about big numbers. So we're happy about it. I think that it's really a major part of our dream, and for those that created the Maccabiah in 1932.
Danny from Canada came to cheer his daughter on and said he'd consider coming back to live.
It's an amazing experience. I think you get kids and adults from all over the world, from the Jewish community. You get to meet lots of people. You get to enjoy the Israeli and Jewish spirit in the place where we all came from.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Netanya, Israel.
Still ahead, more from one of the largest sporting events in the world, the Maccabiah Games. The Maccabiah Games are so diverse, we thought you would want to see more of what's happening. Take a look at what you can find on our social media channels.
Fun to see everybody being so happy to come here and compete. it's amazing. All the Jews come from all the world.
Let's go Canada!
Well, I watched a hockey game between the USA and Canada, just one of the many sports being played here at the Maccabi Games. Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.